Good morning and hi, I'm Geoff Mulgan from Nesta in the UK and really glad to be with you virtually in Estonia. We've, as an organisation, worked quite a bit with Estonian public services and civil society and business. We've learned a huge amount from you, particularly the ways in which you've pioneered so many things on the digital front and perhaps used the virtues of relatively small scale to do things which are harder in bigger systems. And today is really about how we work with you to build on that in relation to design. We're involved in this project with partners in Estonia on Design for Europe, which is really about taking the best of design thinking and making it useful for public services and other organisations trying to make services more usable, more efficient, more successful in every way. And to some extent, I think the case for design is kind of obvious. Only a few weeks ago we saw Apple becoming the world's most valuable company ever, and that's been largely because of the application of design principles to products. Apple was not all that great at research and development or science, but it was phenomenally good at making things useful and a delight for customers. And we think, and the European Commission is backing this programme because they share that view, there's a huge amount of value to be reaped from applying design methods in the day-to-day work of public services. And for me, there's three main elements to this. One is really about understanding the problem, understanding needs, and designers at their best are good at getting into the sort of the fine grain of how people live, the experience of users and customers, doing things like mapping customer journeys, seeing the things which create annoyance or friction or unnecessary cost. And I've often found that even the best policymakers are not necessarily that good at understanding what it feels like to be on the other end of a service. And particularly for digital services, we've seen again and again some digital services which work brilliantly on paper or on the screen but don't actually fit how people are going to use them in their day-to-day lives. So a lot of value to be reaped from embedding design processes really upstream in how services are organised. I think the second great value of design methods is simply visualising things, making that customer journey or making some aspect of a new approach visible, whether on screens or on boards and so on. And again, most governments think in a text-based way. They are prose-based organisations, and particularly public services with a strong foundation in law, like the Estonian public service. And it's very useful to see things. It quickens the pulse. I think the visualisation, it makes you spot patterns which may not be possible to see otherwise, and it's also a way of engaging a much wider public in a discussion about how to design a public service than if you have a lengthy policy report or proposal with lots of numbers and lots of words. So visualisation opens things up in new ways. And then thirdly, I think one of the great virtues of the design world, and it's shared to a degree with software and other fields, is the idea that you should move quickly into practice, rapid prototyping, try as fast as possible to get things tried out with real customers in real life situations, rather than spending lots of time creating very detailed policy plans and strategies before you move into practice. And always, every plan, like every war plan, doesn't really survive its first encounter with reality intact. You learn a huge amount by trying things for real, and ideally trying them very small scale and very fast, so you get the mistakes out of the way quickly rather than experimenting on your whole population at once. These are some of the principles of modern design, all of which have a great utility in adding to the skill set of public services in policy shaping, financial management, all those sorts of things. And I think their value is partly to save costs, partly to make services more useful and usable, but ultimately to get a different way of thinking about how government can work. And I think this is the essential point, and perhaps also the biggest challenge of Design for Europe and of your next 2 days. These methods are in some ways novel and culturally different from the standard ways of working of most governments. which, as I say, are very linear, they're very text-based, they draw on statistics and analyses, but not all that much on insight into human experience, don't necessarily tap the creativity in the brains of frontline staff or users or bureaucrats, and therefore often end up being slightly disappointing. And the great promise of design is to make public services a delight to deal with. A delight either because they're so simple, so frictionless, so easy to use, whether it's paying taxes or licenses and so on, which should be almost effortless to do, or in the other cases where public services should be very intensive relationships, very human, your relationship with a doctor, with a teacher, with other services, design methods can ensure those really reinforce the humanity of those interactions with government. So we don't underestimate some of the challenges which are there for governments, national or local, all over Europe in trying to embed design thinking and design skills. But there is a huge payoff, which is services which end up being not just useful to the public, but liked and perhaps even occasionally loved as well. Good luck.